Hi, and welcome to Brainstorm, a podcast about writing, genre fiction, and moral quandaries. I'm fantasy author Clifton Hill, and I'm fresh out of neurons. In episode 6, it's time to dive into a writer's analysis of the different types of point of view, called POV, and how I use two different types in Kip's Return, the sequel to Kip the Quick, when most books only use one. I also dissect a literary tool that JK Rowling uses fabulously well in the Harry Potter books. It keeps her books relatively lean, keeps the story moving, and is something I really want to incorporate more for my own books. I don't know what you would call it in writing, perhaps tell, not show? But there's more to it than just using the tell technique. And for that reason, we'll simply call it the Hollywood Montage, until someone tells me I'm stupid. Now, on with the show.
So I guess this is kind of a writing technique talk, and it's not really me prescribing what is gospel, rather so much as me discussing things that I'm going through, what I think works and why. So let's start with the POV switching. So I'm not talking about jumping heads. You got a third person limited. Here, actually, I guess I'll back up here a second. If there's anybody that's listening to this that's a brand new writer, we'll define terms here real quick. We'll do basics. We'll do the basics. First person perspective, second person, and third person. Okay, so most of your books are going to be first or third. Second is a bit literary. It's a bit weird. It's even kind of hard for me to even define it. We'll start with first person. This is seen through, the book is written as if being written by the actual character. You will have the prose indicating me, I, and so on. Okay? It can be past tense, present tense, whatever. Now, then there is second person. Second person POV is, let's see, it's you. Sorry. The narrator is basically the narrator says you are doing this, you are doing that. It is as if someone is telling you what is going on. And so, like a second person, if you heard something secondhand, this person is relating what happened, and they're relating it to you, but they're relating it about you. So it's kind of like secondhand information, but it's secondhand information about yourself, basically. So it kind of puts you into the shoes of the narration in a very different way than first person does. I think I've only read one of these ever. John Scalzi, at the end of the Red Shirts novel, he plays with literary forms, and he throws down a kind of an epilogue in three parts from three different, I think, perspectives. Each one is done in first. Well, one's done in first, one's done in second, one is done in third. So it's interesting. Okay, then most of your fiction is going to be in third person, especially adult fiction. It will be either third person limited or third person omni. Omni is your God view. If you're into strategy games, it's kind of like you're a godlike character floating over. You know all, you see all. So when the prose is being through the lens of the narrator, the prose will be talking and aware of everything. This is done in Dune. Dune, we know what the protag, the antag, etc. These are protagonists, antagonists. We know what all the characters are thinking, just as long as, of course, the narrator decides to tell us. Chronicles of Narnia. I think the very first book, which was actually a prequel, so it wasn't the original first chronologically. This is also, I think that was Omni. By the way, I wasn't really into that book. It was kind of boring. This god floating over, not really engaging with anyone, just talking about things. Or maybe I had a very short attention span for that book. I don't know. Anyway, then there's third person limited. Third person limited is probably one of the most used, though first person is very common among young adult literature. Third person limited means the narrator is very close to the current character that is focused on. So if your main character is in the scene and they're the point of view character, then everything is talked about from their perspective, colored by their views on things. It's kind of like first person, but you don't see inside their head. It's more like you're over the shoulder of the person. You're very intimately aware of many things, and you view, the narrator views everything through the current person's perspective. But yeah, and this can switch, but you don't want to do it mid-scene. Typically, you don't want to do this, at least. You will typically want to switch point of view characters, at the end of each scene or chapter. All right, so we've given a little bit of a, that was a bit more detail than I was expecting, but hey, it just came out and it's good to say because it helps reinforce in my own mind how to talk about it. So that was a little briefer on perspective, on the different types of point of views. Okay, so typically most stories, they pick a first person perspective, they pick a perspective and stick with it. So it's typically the whole book is first person, the whole book is third person limited or omni, or the whole book is second person if you're into that kind of thing. If you're first person, a lot of times you stay within one character, though some books do switch it up. I'm not aware of too many. I don't think I really read a lot of first person. However, I do know Twilight did switch up books 2 through 4. First book was all first person from Bella's perspective. And then the subsequent novels did do some head hopping. Well, head hopping is typically what you call it when you are switching perspective, kind of, and it becomes kind of a jerky kind of transition. Like, it can be confusing. So she switches, but it's not really head hopping. She's pretty clear as to when the change happens. All right, so mostly you're sticking with one type of perspective, one type of point of view. In Kip Book 1, in Kip the Quick Book 1, I did first person, past tense. The epilogue, however, was third person limited from a certain character. I won't say who, because, it's not like I'm Stephen King or JK Rowling here. A lot of you out there in the internets have not read my books, and hopefully that changes soon. So let's keep this a little evergreen for now. So in book 2, there will be some changes. There will be some switches of point of view, even in the style. It will still be first person, past tense, like the first. However, there will be more third person limited from 2 different characters. And I kind of agonized over this a little bit. I set precedents with book 1, and book 2 will basically be continuing that. I feel like it worked for book 1, so I think it will work for book 2, especially since we already kind of set it up in book 1. it's bound to be a little jarring for some people, but the storylines do intermesh and complement and expand each other. So hopefully it'll work. We'll see if it will. You can tell me if it does. You can tell me if it does not. Hopefully it does, though, because I'm going to do it for book 3 as well. Haha. All right, so, and then that's kind of my little mini discussion on perspective. What's your perspective? Now, let's move on to JK Rowling and the Hollywood Montage. So when I'm talking about the Hollywood Montage, I'm talking about your stereotypical, blockbuster action movie, though it happens in many other, types of movies. But you've got the main character, let's say, in an action flick, and they're not strong enough, skilled enough, whatever it may be, to fight the bad guy or bad guys or right the wrongs or whatever. And so they go through some training. You start with detailed training. If you go to, say, watching Karate Kid, maybe there's the wax on, wax off thing with the cars. There's the painting up and down. There's the other ones. And then it's followed by, showing little clips, brief little clips, showing the character continuing with their training, continuing to enhance their skills. We don't do detail in all of this. It would be boring. I guess you could make it entertaining, but if you did make it entertaining and you did it at length and detail, then it would do something else, and it would side rail your plot, your story, into just basically just being a movie about training. So the montage works. I mean, you cut to some music. It's all very kind of amps you up. It's entertaining without being slogging. You keep a good pace going through it. And I'm rereading the Harry Potter series, and this is why this kind of comes up right now in my mind. I read it twice on my own, and I'm reading it for a third time to my daughter. Though if she continues at this pace with book 5, I may cease reading it the third time with her, because she might just rip through the next couple of books on her own. I don't know. But in the books, one thing I've noticed, and I kind of, I'm pretty sure someone pointed this out to me on some podcast recently. It might have been Writing Excuses or something else. But Rowling does a great job of spanning time. She'll have a little scene or a larger detailed scene, and something's happening, and then there will be a little segue talking about something happened, a day passed, something happened, a week passed, something a month passed, and there's a great display of time elapsing and what's happening, keeping it interesting, showing some humor, showing some education, some learning, whatever it may be, discovering more bad things. Basically you get into a scene as a writer, and I think for a lot of us, we start writing a scene and we feel like you have to basically, what do I want to say? Teleprompt, or you want to convey everything that happens from start to finish. It's a little bit of the oversharing, the info dumping, as it were, that we can tend to do, that we have to cut out. Rowling does a great job, and this is maybe one of the reasons why her books are so entertaining, is even in these kind of, well, I guess it's kind of two things. Even in these dry patches between things happening, she conveys quite a lot. But The second aspect of this that's really important is she doesn't waste time doing it. I have some scenes that I've been looking at and kind of disparaging over in Kip 2, thinking about, what am I going to do in this spot or that spot? And how do I make it unique? And I have this great scene before it, this great scene after it. I know what happens in between, but I'm not too clear on details, especially on an interesting scene for it, an interesting setting, interesting actions, interesting character stuff going on. And I realize, as I'm reading Harry Potter Book 5, that Rowling doesn't do that. I think if she gets to a scene where it doesn't seem like there's a lot there, she just truncates it. She gives the bare minimum, and we move on through. And we like it. It works. There's nothing wrong with it. As long as your scene has a cohesive arc to it, a setup of kind of a question and answer, or at least some satisfaction of that question, then you have a working scene. Even if the scene is kind of has within it a combination of multiple different small segments of scenes that all kind of interconnect. So that's something I was realizing recently about Harry Potter, and kind of linking it to the Hollywood Montage, because you have a detailed segment, and then you have a bunch of clips, which is kind of like this. You show the detail, it immerses the reader, and then you just do clips to fill in kind of the blanks, and you don't overdo it, so we don't bore anybody. So that is my journal entry for today. I hope this was interesting. It was interesting to me. It's kind of like hacking my brain, writing out the contents in front of me. And hey, I'm driving right now, so I really don't have a lot of other things I can do. So it makes me feel productive. Yay. As long as I'm not too tired. Boo. But today I'm feeling pretty decent. So that's my thought on writing. Now, you go out there, fellow writer, and write some more.
Thanks for listening, dear reader. Visit www.cliftonh.com, subscribe to my newsletter, and read my books. Reading is awesome.